welcome to another episode of Stuck with the Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Uncle AK.
And I'm Reflex. Hey, thank you so much for checking us out weekly. If you have not done so, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's SITM Podcast, youtube.com/SITM Podcast, and every social media platforms we are active. You know what I'm saying? Hit us up. We'd like to connect. Send us an email, sitmpodcast237@gmail.com with questions, concerns, and you know what I'm saying? All that good stuff. Definitely want to shout out our sponsor, Perfect Office Solutions. They provide affordable, professional, flexible private office spaces starting just $4.99. You know, you get free Wi-Fi, parking, and all that good stuff. You can even get a private desk for $99. You know, you use promo code SITM Podcast, you get 10% off your lease. That's a steal right there, bro. You know what I mean?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. We got a special guest in the building.
Special guest.
You want to let them know who we got?
Yeah, man. She is a blogger, dreamer, founder and CEO of Chronically Fearless, a fearless girl's guide to life. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Tasha McCormack to Stuck in the Middle Podcast.
Yeah.
Hey.
Welcome.
How you
Thanks
feeling?
for having me. I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good.
You travel a long way to get here.
Speak of the mic. Don't be shy.
I did.
How was your journey for you coming from
I was
New
in New
Jersey?
Jersey.
Yeah. Thank you for coming though. Thank you for coming. We had to push a little back, but you know, make sure you get here safe
Thank you
first.
for accommodating me.
Yeah. I want to start here. You know, you got a lot of quotes in your Instagram. Feed your faith and your fears will starve to death. What do you mean by that?
I feel like if you put everything into, your goals, what you're trying to do, then you're not really putting that much energy into your fear. Because I feel like fear is something that you have to feed in order for it to keep on growing, in order for it to like really, bring you down. So if you're focusing all that energy into other things, into what you actually want to get done, into your goals, then it starves, literally.
But how do you break that fear though? Because I feel like, for some people who have panic attacks, stuff like that, it's just very hard to break out of that. How do you break out of that? I'm pretty sure was gonna cover this later in the episode. But anyways, just real quick.
To be honest, it doesn't go anywhere. I actually have panic attacks. I suffer from anxiety a lot. Just sometimes I don't even know what it is that's bothering me, and my heart starts pounding. I have I just kind of feel like almost like a little mini heart attack, but I know that's because I'm always trying to do a million things, and I'm always, trying to work on my goals. So I'm like, okay, so let me try to take that energy and put it into this. So I'm not sitting here focused on the fact that I'm driving myself crazy. Let me, drive myself crazy doing those other things, and then it wavers. So it's something that's always going to be there, but you got to put it, kind of push it back as best as you can, because fear doesn't really go anywhere. It's just about how much attention you pay to it.
You speak a lot about fear, hence Chronically Fearless, but I want to hear from the horse's mouth. Who is Tasha McCormack?
I'm a pretty normal person. I think that's actually what I try to portray with this, that you can be normal despite a disease. So basically, I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis in 2011. It was actually my senior year of college, the fall semester. So, you're having a lot of fun. It's your last year of school. You ready to get out. I remember I had gone to so many parties and stuff, like the weeks of it before it started happening. And then I want to say for about a 3 to 4 week period, I just wasn't myself. Because I'm somebody I can usually run around, do a million things. I could be focusing on my schoolwork. I could be talking on the phone all the time. I can usually juggle a lot. And then it was suddenly my head was mush almost. My handwriting was changing. That's where it started. I was writing in advanced physiology class. I'll never forget, because that was the hardest class. So you're taking constant notes. And then my hand kept it was like a tremor in my hand. So after a couple weeks, my handwriting went from I like to say that I write in really pretty cursive.
Like every girl.
Yeah, and it changed to you ever seen the Unabombers notes? It was like that, very ugly, very scratchy and stuff like that. And I was like, what's? But I didn't. You know how you don't think too much into something as it's happening.
Right.
So I guess I didn't pay too much attention to it. I didn't really tell anybody, because the tremor would start and I would just have to keep writing. Then I just started getting really clumsy out of nowhere. My head felt like it was almost walking around in drunkenness all the time. I remember I almost walked into a tree going to work, because I just didn't, you don't even feel it happening. You're just going It was like almost like I wasn't in my body. I thought I was doing one thing, but my body was doing something else,
Whoa.
which is exactly what MS is because it's a neurological condition. So, other than that, I couldn't. It was like I would sleep and sleep and sleep, but I was never like refreshed. I remember being like 45 minutes late to a 50-minute class and getting like because I would wake up in the middle of the class. Like I would wake up and it's like my 8 o'clock class. It was 8:30, and how you know what I mean? How do you get to class in time? And then just so many other things were happening. My appetite. I felt like my blood pressure was really low, and then getting close to the end of that 3 to 4 week period, the whole left side of my body went numb.
Oh.
Yeah, including like my tongue, everything. So my speech was weird. So I was talking to people and it sounded fine to me. And then they're like, Tasha, what did you just say? And I had no idea why no one was understanding me. But the problem with me always being that person that likes to juggle everything, I like to get everything done for myself. I wasn't really saying anything like to my parents, to other people like, hey, I think something's wrong. I was just kind of going through the motions. I was like, oh, maybe it's stress. Maybe it's, I blamed it on so many other things. And in the end, it turned out to be something that was way more major. So it ended with me actually going to my job. At the time, I was working at the Towson University daycare. And when I went there that morning, I talked to my mom. No, I talked to my dad. Now I can't even remember the story. But I talked to one of my parents, and they said, you just don't sound good. And shortly after that, I actually collapsed in the daycare.
Wow.
Because something that happens a lot with MS is extreme dizziness. So that was that drunk feeling I was feeling that whole time. So I left there in an ambulance, ended up in St. Joseph's Hospital in Baltimore. And I spent about a day or two there of them running tests. I got every sort of MRI, blood tests, those things where they tell you follow my hand, just about everything. And they told me that I could either have Bell's palsy or multiple sclerosis. And the first thing I thought of was in middle school when we learned about multiple sclerosis and how everyone was in wheelchairs. So obviously I was frightened. And then my African family that was there with me thought, oh no, that's white people's disease. They don't know what they're talking about. So that's all that anybody was saying. I was like, you guys are talking, but are you listening? Like, this is me. They're saying that I could have two of these horrible things. And in the end, it turned out that that's actually what it was.
What was your first initial reaction when you heard the doctor say that? Those like you could be one of those two things.
I felt like I had an outer body experience. Like, I mean, I was already having one, but it was like times 10. Like I really didn't know what to do with myself. A lot of people were calling me. I remember that was probably the most, like, hotline bling. Like my phone was just at that time, like my phone was just going off and I couldn't even talk to anybody because everybody was trying to see if I was okay. And I just kept thinking, like, everybody's calling me like this is a common cold or something like that. Like they don't know what it is. And I just can't talk to anybody because I don't even know how to explain myself right now. Not that it was my fault, but I just didn't know like how to even start accepting it. And it's like you want to pray, but pray about, like, I was really getting into a very hopeless type of feeling. And even in starting Chronically Fearless, that's the feeling that I'm trying to at least prevent or decrease. Just that feeling of when you hear you have a disease of just completely shutting out and thinking everything's going to be over. And just trying to live fearlessly above it all.
Man, is MS genetically passed on to somebody else?
So they say it can be. My kids might have a higher chance of getting it, but then there's also a chance that nobody will get it. So it really depends. It's basically something where in your brain you have your myelin sheath. That's the fatty tissue around your nerves that helps every signal transfer as fast as possible. So with MS, your immune system eats away at that. So once it does that, those signals either travel really slowly or they stop altogether, which is why it can affect literally any part of your body. So if the signal stops traveling to my tongue, I might not be able to talk. If the signal stops traveling to my feet, I can't use those. So, or if it slows down, then maybe I'll just be on crutches or need a walker or something like that. So it can literally affect any part of your body.
Is there a cure?
No, not as
So
of
it's
yet.
like lifelong.
Yeah, there are several different types of it though. What I have is RRMS, relapsing remitting. So that means it comes, it goes. That first episode has been my biggest episode. I haven't had anyone to that extent since the onset of my disease. Ever since that, what I tend to get is anxiety is actually a part of MS. I feel like that might be why I get it more now. But if anything, when I'm in high stress, I'll have slurred speech every now and then. Tremors in my, it's not really my hands. I get a like sparkling foot thing, firecracker foot. That's what I call
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
But it's just basically where when your foot falls asleep and that tingling starts. Mine is times like 100. Like it's like literally, it's like your phone vibrating, but it's my foot. So that comes, in and out. But since then, I just thank God that I haven't ever had a major, major episode like that first one. Dizziness is always a big thing. But thankfully, I haven't really had like a episode that I can really mark as a MS exacerbation since like 2014. So I haven't had anything major, major. So
How do you
I'm
prepare
really thankful
for?
for that.
Let's just say, I mean, well, you can't anticipate, the attacks, but what measures have you taken just in case you have those attacks anyway?
So I currently take medication for MS in general. I take Tecfidera, so it's something that any MS medication is usually an interferon. So basically, those things try to kill the overactive cells that are trying to kill your myelin. So I do take that. But honestly, the best thing you can do is try to relieve stress. MS symptoms a lot of times can be triggered by heat. So summertime is a time that you really want to try to calm down as best as you can, just so because if say I lived in the middle of the desert, I would probably have more attacks than I would living in
Yeah.
you know Antarctica. But the best you can do, honestly, is always be in contact with your healthcare provider, and just always know what your triggers are. So, me knowing that heat is one of mine, me knowing that stress is one of mine, I try my best to keep those down, even though I feel like I'm still always stressed out. But
Yeah.
what can you do?
Yeah.
But I think just having a good relationship with your healthcare provider is probably the best thing, and consistently staying up on like MRIs and just health appointments and things like that, which is something that I've struggled with as well. But I think that's the best way to know what's coming, because an MRI can always tell. They can always tell when there are new plaques in your brain. Plaques are like the areas of the scar tissue where they can see where your myelin has been damaged. So they can look at that and say, you know what, it looks like you have a little bit more. And not like they can tell you, okay, you're going to have an attack in 3 months, but it's like, this doesn't look right, so be careful.
Right.
But yeah, that's kind of the best you can do.
Gonna get to Chronically Fearless and peel, the different layers of Tasha. But for people like me who are kind of like, to some level, ignorant to MS, and scared. What demographic does it affect? Is it like black females, so people 25 to 30, or
So
older folks?
MS is actually a young person's disease.
Whoa.
Most people get it between the ages of 20 and 40. What they do say regarding race is that and this never made sense to me, but the further you are away from the equator, the more likely you are to get it. So imagine hearing that.
So people
that-
from Ghana ain't never.
Yeah, so that's no, literally, because when it happened, my mom was like, "That sounds kind of crazy," but then it makes sense because in Africa, I never met anybody with multiple sclerosis.
Right.
So it kind of makes sense, but then it's also about where you grew up. I might have African blood, but I was born here, raised here. I've always been in Maryland. So obviously I'm further away from the equator, so, which is why certain races are more likely to get it. But then they do say when African Americans get it, we have the more harsh versions of it. Like, I don't know if you know, but Michelle Obama's father died from MS, or
Did not
complications
know.
of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it just kind of depends. I wouldn't say like it is more for females or males though.
It's
just-
actually twice more. Women get it twice more than men.
Oh wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
What part of Africa you folks from? What part of Africa you rap?
Sierra Leone.
Hey,
And
Salome,
Liberia for my
Salome,
boyfriend.
baby. Oh, shout out. Got to. So, Chronically Fearless, though,
Yeah.
you propelled, that in all that was went on you into Chronically Fearless. When did you start Chronically Fearless, and why? I mean, of course, why, but what was that, motivation?
So in 2015, I needed like a new project. Like I said, I'm always kind of doing something, and I was just kind of thinking like, what can I do that would be just about me, about what I go through, things like that. I just because I had just stopped a position where I was like mentoring girls and things like that, and that was kind of coming to an end. And I was like, what am I gonna do? And then I thought, why don't I do something for people who are literally just like me? Because one thing when I got diagnosed that I could not find was just an outlet. Somebody like me who was explaining what was going on with them. Because they said, okay, MS is not that bad. You're going to be okay. But I was like, how do I know? I need to like see it. I need to see someone else explaining their doctor's appointments or, what kind of disease they have, how they go about everyday life. Are they still in school? Do they still have a career? Do they have children? Like all those things. I needed to actually see it played out because, you hear about celebrities and stuff with diseases, but we don't really know them. There's not that
Connection.
personal connection. So I was like, why don't I provide that for other people? And that's kind of how Chronically Fearless was born, actually on a notepad on my desk at my old job. And then I decided to actually launch it at the beginning of 2017. I spent 2016 just trying to get my thoughts together and also doing like little commercials and things like that just to kind of build a following before I actually created the website. And since then, I think it's been going pretty strong.
What have you been able to accomplish with Chronically Fearless to this point in time?
I think I've given people like a new face for disease in general, not just multiple sclerosis, because my most common reaction is, I didn't even know you had anything. You don't look like it. Because most people do think of MS and wheelchairs or MS and sometimes death. So I'm glad I can kind of be that face for people. And just from the day, even before my website launched, it was probably the October before. That's when I just started putting out my first commercials and things like that. And so many people reached out to me on Facebook telling me about things that were going on with them. A guy from high school had actually been diagnosed with MS a year before I started doing it. And he was like, you have no idea how happy I was to see this. Because it's not something you just get up and say to people when you first meet them, like, hey, my name is Tasha, I have multiple sclerosis. You don't say that. You meet people and you just hope they won't judge you about something. It might come up in conversation eventually, but it's not something I used to like to say. And when I did get diagnosed, I told my mom, I said, I'm not going to be the spokesperson. Don't start telling everybody. I want no parts. And then obviously I've done a complete 360.
I was just gonna ask you, I was just gonna ask you, and like start at, you had to move out. I think at 26, 27 at your parents' house, and you had to come back in.
Yeah.
Shout out to them for taking you back in. But
my dad loved me. He wanted me back.
But what was that? Why did you get out in the first place?
So honestly, I just got my first very good job and was like, well, I'm going.
Peace out.
Yeah, like I wanted my own space. You see on Instagram, all your friends got their apartments. They have little kickbacks. They're doing everything. I feel like that was really the main reason, and I just didn't want to have to answer to anybody. But when you go, you realize there's some bills. Yeah, there are bills. And like coming back home was when I realized how much I really am saving. Like I was spending a lot of money. I was my cousin was my roommate, but still it's just like you're spending so much. And honestly, coming from an African household, they've come here and done so much just so they can take care of you until you're truly ready. So I feel like I kind of took that for granted a little bit. So I'd rather be at home paying my parents my little $300 a month, and that's better than and saving for something bigger, for a home or for something else, than wasting that type of money. But it teaches you a lesson. I feel like most people don't learn it until they actually do it. Because I have several friends or cousins who are trying to move out now, and they might be only like 25 or something like that. And I'm like, wait, but they don't care. But
you still home?
You have to learn the lesson. Yeah, I'm still home.
Was this you moving out around the same time you were starting Chronically Fearless?
So I moved out at the very beginning of 2016, but I came back in February of 2017. So I had Chronically Fearless out for like a month when I moved back, and it's just perfect, just because, especially when I started actually vlogging, not just only having written posts. I have so much space to do those things. I don't feel like I would have had the finances to buy my camera, to buy my lights and things like that, or even have a place to do it, because I have a permanent spot in our living room, kind of just like how you guys have here. But I have a permanent spot in my house where all my stuff is set up, where I go in and record and do everything. And I feel like my parents really do support me. I don't feel like I would have as much money to put into everything I do, whether it's commercials, my t-shirt line, all that stuff, if I was still living outside of the house. So
Yeah, your website, I truly love the fearless features. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of people don't share the stories these days. People turn to keep things inside, fear of judgment and or whatnot. And that section of your on your website, portray people with chronic diseases, right? Why did you choose to do that? And where do you find the people to actually feature in these blogs?
So a lot of people typically reach out to me on like Instagram, or they're people who I already know, because I feel like I only knew maybe about two other people who dealt with things like this. I had two friends with sickle cell at the time, and then through doing this, so many people reached out to me. So I was like, there has to be a feature page, and I feel like I said earlier, that's the biggest relief for some people when you do find out that you have a disease, to see somebody who's just like you, to read their story and see how they deal with certain things, how they deal just with work, with children, with love, with everything, because it affects everything. As much as you might think it doesn't, it really does. Because not like I've ever had some guy tell me, I'm not going to date you because you got MS, but like, I feel like it happens to people. That makes people shy away from stuff, because they might think, oh, you might not be able to have kids, or you might, because people can be, ignorant to certain things. Or even with a job, maybe they'll think, I can't give you this job because I don't know if you'll pass out after a week, or I don't know what you'll do. So it really affects everything. So I just wanted people to be able to see it from a whole bunch of different perspectives. I'm actually starting a series over the next couple of weeks with other fearless girls actually coming onto the vlog, kind of like how we are, just to talk so they can see people in person, not just read their story, but actually see what they go through. So it's probably going to be about 6 different girls over the next couple of weeks that are going to be coming on.
On a personal note, how has living with MS limited you or propelled you to bigger heights?
With limiting, I actually used to think it would limit me a lot, but I actually feel like it's propelling me now.
Oh, that's tough. Yeah,
I
that's
never
that fearless.
thought I
That's
would
that.
say that.
That's that chronically fearless right there.
Yeah, I never thought I would say that, but I really feel like living my truth with this disease and being just able to say it to people, and because for almost 4 years, I never said it to most people. Only like my best friends knew, my parents, certain family members. That, like, there's still certain family members who probably only found out just because of this blog. But I think living my truth has made me really figure out who I am also. I didn't know I was brave. I didn't know I was a lot of different things until I did this. So I feel like it's propelled me a lot. And I think, I don't know, I keep on saying living your truth a lot lately, just because I feel like it does a lot for anyone.
I was just going to say, what do you mean by living your truth? Like, what does that mean?
Being yourself, whatever your truth is. If you're, say, God forbid, but if you're a drug addict and you've recovered, I think you'll get a lot further telling people your story and being somewhat of a cautionary tale, or just trying to tell people about your mistakes and your lessons and all of that, than being that person who tried to cover it up. You act like that never happened and put that part in your life in the past, and then you're walking around like, you don't stink. I think you accomplish a lot more living that truth, and people learn a lot more from you when you do that.
Gotcha.
Because in a way, when you're not being yourself and keeping those things hidden, it's almost like you're posing, and Yeah, I just think it's important to just be you.
You have an event coming up, the
Yes.
Fearless Experience.
Yes.
Talk a little bit about that, and you could plug it in as well.
Yeah, so on Sunday, September 16th, Chronically Fearless is going to have its first annual self-care workshop, which is the Fearless Experience. So I had this idea a while back, but I wanted to make sure that, of course, I had the finances, and I wanted to make sure that it is exactly the type of event I'm looking for. I'm looking for it to be a self-care expo, basically. Something where women and men can come and just basically learn everything they need to learn about self-care and actually get to be involved in demonstrations, whether it's yoga, whether it's aromatherapy, whether it's healthy eating, fitness, hair care, beauty, all that stuff. So it's basically going to be an expo where guests can go through different stations. You can eat, you can drink, and you can buy from vendors. So I had a launch party last year, so it'll kind of be an extension of that, but something that we can keep on doing every year, that'll just show people how to take care of themselves, and just a day to indulge in yourself, because I think that's very important. Though things like that are what relieve my stress. Ever since I got MS, I remember the first 3 years my mom paid for me to get birthday massages, and I loved it. I've gotten into aromatherapy a lot lately. I love to sleep. So yeah, just taking care of yourself, how important it is, because even if I can run around for 8 hours in a day, if I can spend 2 hours just to myself to do those things, it kind of negates all that. It takes away all the stress that I dealt with early in the day, because at least I took those 2 hours to take care of myself. So I just want to encourage people to do that. And once again, it's going to be on Sunday, September 16th at Elevation in DC from 3 to 9 p.m.
Pull up, pull up, pull up.
Your mission statement says a fearless girl's guide to life, right? Why just girls or women at that? Why not men and women? I mean, you just said the fearless event, men, women, pull up. But then your mission statement says a fearless guide for women.
AK1 smoke.
You know what I mean?
My thing is, I'm a woman.
Right. Of course.
So I can only tell you how to live your life as a woman, or how to live your life with a disease as a woman. I feel like we have a different plight at the end of the day. Men and women, we're very close, of course, but I feel like we have a different plight at the end of the day. One thing that I notice a lot with disease, a woman is looked at differently when she's diseased. The first thing a lot of people will think about, I think I mentioned it already, but is your ability to bear children. The minute they think you have something that, she's, they might look at you a certain way. That's something that I feel like needs to be talked about. One thing I've always realized is that women are more of the compromisers in life. Men know what they want and they stick to it. They kind of don't waver or change. Women compromise. So a lot of times when things affect women, men are just going to be like, everybody just kind of, the whole society just kind of looks the other way. But so because we deal with a lot of that, I feel like we have a different plight, and there are more things that we have to go through in regards to chronic disease, if it happens. Because I know, for example, actually the person that we went to celebrate this weekend, they're dealing with a condition right now. I never would have known. And even with seeing him, everybody's all, I feel like it's kind of a different response when it's a guy versus a girl. So it's kind of hard to articulate, but we just kind of have a different struggle when it comes to something like that. So I feel like there needs to be extra attention paid to women in these kind of situations, just because we do deal with a lot more just because of how society is structured,
Yeah, I get where you come from, because when I first heard of, MS, the very first thing that came to mind was, is this terminal? I was like, it's just a terminal disease. That's a woman actually having this. are you able to bear kids?
See?
Is
Yeah.
it sexually
See?
transmitted?
Yeah.
Stuff like that. It was just
And
some wild questions.
yeah.
But when it's a guy, you're not gonna. Oh, he's just sick. You're not gonna think about all that.
Right.
Yeah, and shout out to the men, who are married or dating, this but women need, the men to come around and support and help. So definitely pull up, bring your girlfriends to come learn and or if they have to come be encouraged and be a part of it.
And some of the vendors and speakers will be male as well. So
Yeah. We might be in the building,
the
you don't
event will
know.
be for everybody. I
Stuck in the middle. We love. That's one thing we're big on collaboration and support. So we might pull up.
Yeah.
Hey, I want to talk about one of your more recent vlogs. You want to do well with your life.
Yes.
How was that? It's first of all, it's Chronically Fearless. You're full time right now.
No, I'm actually a financial aid counselor
Okay.
at UMUC also. But Chronically Fearless, I want it to eventually be my full-time gig, which my parents didn't really completely understand at first. Because, African parents, they want
Yeah,
you
you
to
want
get
to do with your
something
life.
straight.
Yeah.
They don't, it's not, they don't understand all these new millennium
How
things.
it's gonna convert into dollar bills?
Into dollar
Yes.
bills, into dollar sign.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Because one thing my dad said when we brought up the T-shirts, he said, "So you're gonna sell T-shirts like forever?" And I was like, "I want to. You guys are missing the point. Like, I want to be a global influencer." And with that come a lot of different things, speaking engagements, just
Stuck in the middle. You know
different,
what I'm saying?
yeah, like all these different things. So there are different ways to generate funds, and I think in doing what I'm doing, they're kind of understanding that. Like even this family event that I had to leave, when I said I had a podcast interview, they're like, "Oh, okay." Like now everybody's starting to get it a little bit, because before they would have been like, "You leave early for what?" So I think it's a slow race,
yeah.
but I think I'm winning now.
Yeah.
But it's just about how you explain everything to them. In that vlog, you have to come prepared. With African parents in general, you have to come correct. So I think if you come correct, they'll see, okay, you're putting a lot of work into this. You're well planned. You're trying to get this done, as opposed to you just getting up and. I mean, some things can be spur of the moment too, but if they just see, okay, you get up and do this one thing one day, then you leave it. Then you bring up this other thing the next day, then you leave it, then another thing, then they might not take you as serious. But if they see your commitment to something and you just trying to build that, I think they may not necessarily, of course, they'll still want me to be a doctor at the end of the day over this, I'm sure. But they'll at least respect what I'm doing.
Yeah. I want to ask you, what are your thoughts on, people going into the entrepreneurship market, and what's your advice to those people? Because a lot of people are leaving the job market.
Yeah, actually, a cousin yesterday just told me he's trying to leave now
Quit,
to
yeah,
start
yeah.
a branding company.
Yeah.
And it's hard. It is hard, especially financially, because being an entrepreneur, you literally have to look at yourself after you've paid all your bills. All right, I might only have $300 left for the next 2 weeks, and somehow I need to pay to book a venue, and somehow I also need to pay to get more hats and T-shirts because I'm vending at an event on this day. So you really have to budget. You have to learn how to, when you do have, especially if you have something where you're actually selling some sort of merchandise or something, how to not use that money, but try to keep it for your next time that you'll have to restock or, do something else. I wasn't able to really learn that until most recently, like one of my events in July, to actually keep that money, because that's how I was able to, put it towards something else. But it's hard. And then also your time. I think the time is the biggest part, because other than finances, just being able to, especially if you're still using that full-time job income to finance your business, like the time, because it's so hard to work 9 to 6 or something like that, and then come home and say, oh wait, I have to put on my makeup, I have to record, I have to edit the video and do all this before I go to sleep. Plus I'm in grad school, so I have homework too. Like, that's difficult.
Yeah.
But I think it's all in the way you plan it. And honestly, if you really, really, really want to do it, you'll get it done. I believe that too. If you make sure that whatever you're trying to go into being an entrepreneur is something that you truly want to do, because you'll drop it, because it's hard. You'll drop it if you don't really care about it. So you have to make sure it's something you're really passionate about.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
That's bars. Are you happy with the medical handling of MS right now, and do you think there might be a cure in like the next 25 years?
I'm actually really excited about what they're doing as far as MS therapy, because I'll say that when I was diagnosed, it'll be 7 years in September. But when I was diagnosed, everybody was like afraid of the pill form of medication. Everything was injections or like muscle infusions for the therapies, and the pills had like just gotten on the market. And now I'm actually on pills. I'm on Tecfidera. I think it's been out. They said, I don't want to say the wrong thing, but it hasn't been out that long. But it is FDA approved. People who have been on it are successful. They have some people who've been on it for about 20 years now. Like people who are in the initial trials and they're doing well. Very little relapses or no relapses at all. So I'm hoping maybe the cure won't happen in my lifetime, but they're moving pretty fast as far as I can see. So it's definitely good to see and hear.
Where can one find, more information about MS?
My favorite place is the National MS Society. They're probably the biggest resource for any information you want on MS, and they connect you with a lot of other resources. So you can find a National MS Society anywhere in the country. Some of them, it depends on where you live. Like in Maryland here, we have a lot of different chapters for National MS Society. They're actually the ones who put on the MS Walk in DC and Columbia, Maryland, a lot of different places. I participated in it the first April after I was diagnosed, and I have ever since. But that's definitely a great resource. And then also, I know my doctor, my neurologist, he showed me a lot of different things I could go through, because he actually, it was funny, well, not funny, but he ended up getting cancer, and he survived it, I want to say about 2 years ago. So, he's fearless in himself and in just explaining all of that to me. So he's also shown me like these are a lot of different things you can reach out to. They'll give you support group numbers, things like that. Although I never at first really found a support group that I liked when I was initially diagnosed, because everything seemed to be too
12-step kind of thing.
yeah, well, that and just rushed. Like, okay, you can't tell me I can call in and I can only speak to this person for 15 minutes a day, and that's supposed to be therapy for me. And actually, that's a goal of mine as well, to eventually start my own support groups with Chronically Fearless, because that's the end goal, to just really be able to get people through this.
Glad you said that.
Where do you see Chronically Fearless in the next 5 years?
In the next 5 years, I'll definitely have those support groups. Hopefully, just around the area, to just get different fearless girls to kind of have my different chapters, sort of like a society within itself. And then I definitely want to be a global ambassador for MS, especially even in Africa or countries, well, just with people of color in general, because these are the diseases that a lot of times we think we don't get. As Black people, as African people, we think we're somehow immune, but what I've learned is that health issues really, they see no color, they see nothing. So I think people really need to be educated about it, because when you don't know about something, how can you help yourself?
Right.
Especially in Africa, because sometimes you'll just hear oh, this person, they just fell and died. That's what they say.
Juju.
And nobody knows why. How do you know it wasn't this? Or how do you know it wasn't some other disease that we think we don't get? Because everybody just talks about cancer or, other things. But there is so much more that happens. And with all the water we drink, all the food we eat, all the different medications we take, we're so susceptible to so many things. So, you have to open your eyes to what's out there. And hopefully I can educate people on that.
Running a little short on time, but want to bring it back full circle to where we started. You got a lot of quotes on your social media. What is the one that is constantly reminded of and encourage yourself with? And being that this is stuck in the middle, how do you pick yourself up when you face days where it's like, dang, like I just can't do it no more, if there are such days?
I've had those days. I think I have one on my it's probably from the earlier days of the Chronically Fearless Instagram. When you become fearless, life becomes limitless. And I'm not completely fearless because I cry all the time. I do, I get stressed. I really, really do. But I try to remember that with what I'm doing, I'm making life limitless for a lot of other people because they'll realize their own fearlessness. So I just try to think about the bigger picture, I guess, and just try to remember that as long as I keep doing what I'm doing, it's gonna help somebody. Even if it's just this shirt, because even with my line, the No Fear collection, people like this shirt and they don't have any disease. They don't, nothing's going on with them, but they just like the whole idea. Like I'm walking around and people think I'm fearless because it might be fearless against domestic violence. It might be fearless against war or crime or something like that. So I just try to think about the overall message that I'm spreading.
I like it.
Success. I hope this
starting
is
starting that line what's that line, the support group. I don't know.
Success like for Chronically Fearless. Okay.
I don't know. Yeah, in life in general.
In life, success would be me being able to get up every day and do this and just this and take care of my future kids and just my actual dream is to be a stay-at-home mom / blogger. So if I can do that every day for the next 50, 60, whatever, how many years God gives me on the green earth, I think that would be what's most fulfilling to me, helping other fearless women and building a family and a life.
I like you.
How can people reach you on social?
So, can everybody take out their phones in here? That would be great. So everybody can follow me at the same time.
This is a music concert.
So you can definitely reach out to my personal Instagram page, all things Tosh _ on Instagram, and then Chronically Fearless _ Chronically Fearless on Instagram, and our website chronicallyfearless.com, where you can access weekly vlog posts, fearless features, where you can purchase the No Fear collection and the Diagnosis Fearless collection, and where you can even submit your own story to be featured on the site. And you can also access other chronic disease resources. And we're also on Twitter. It's called Fearless Talk. It's _ Fearless Talk on Twitter. So posts and updates are usually shared on there as well. And I think that's about it for my social media.
It's all gonna be right here.
It's gonna be, and pull up to the event coming up.
Yes, the Fearless Sundays. Experience.
Yes, sir. Yeah, man, appreciate you so much for coming, sharing this story, and kicking it with us, making it all the way from New Jersey. Thank you so much for coming.
Yes, thank you so much.
Definitely want to thank y'all for checking in again weekly. We appreciate the support. Stuck in Middle Podcast, SITM Podcast on all social media platforms, and we love to read emails from you. That's SITMPodcast237@gmail.com. Okay, who we got next week, bro?
We got Alexia.
Lexia.
She goes by Lexi.
Yeah.
Is it Bolo?
Bolo, yeah.
She's a dancer, entrepreneur,
makeup enthusiast, global health
advocate,
soldier.
Soldier.
Yeah, looking forward to this.
Definitely.
All those previous guests that have danced over me, this time around, I'm not letting nobody outshine me in dancing.
Word. Okay, we're gonna see.
We're gonna see, but not.
We're gonna have Atri be the referee.
Nah, I want you to be the referee. You can actually judge. Atri don't know what you do. It's like no shots. But yeah, definitely appreciate you checking out this episode. Learn a lot from Tasha.
Mm-hmm.
This Stuck in Middle Podcast.
We out.
Yes, sir.